Penguin Random House Audio presents A Forest Journey, The Role of Trees in the Fate of Civilization, by John Perlin. Read for you by Runnette. Author's Foreword to the 2023 edition. In 2018, I was contacted by the book publisher at Patagonia. She told me that about 25 years ago, Patagonia's founders, Yvonne and Melinda Chouinard, first read A Forest Journey. She said that its message about the majesty of the trees and the cyclic pattern by which many human civilizations destroyed them stayed with them, and that they recommended the book far and wide in the years that followed. By 2017, however, the book had become difficult to find. That's when the Chouinards asked Patagonia's book team, headed by Carla Olson, to investigate whether the rights were available so that Patagonia could republish what they felt was a foundational book for understanding the environmental crisis. Originally scheduled to publish in 2020, the book was delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic, which further underscored the urgency of protecting the world's forests and the biodiversity and carbon sequestration they provide. Nearly 5 years after I was first contacted by Patagonia, the book is finally here, enlarged, updated, and beautified. The latest edition is even more comprehensive than the original, adding examples from India and China, as well as the continents of Africa and South America. The sources include scientific studies, millennia-old literature, as well as invaluable oral histories passed down from generation to generation. The inclusion of these societies disputes the commonly held belief that civilization has been solely a European enterprise. The timelessness of A Forest Journey is that it shows that the waves of civilization, the swells of colonization by people of all colors and cultures, have crashed the planet over the millennia, and in their wake have destroyed great stands of forest, along with the indigenous peoples who lived there. It began with the Neanderthals, when they figured out how to attach wooden handles to sharp rocks to create the devastating axe, and it continues to this day. The book also demonstrates that Europeans and their Euro-American cousins, like everyone else in the world, have strong ancestral ties to the wilderness. It is easy to forget this, possibly because over the last several centuries they have conquered and destroyed indigenous cultures on every continent and replaced them with the international industrial order. Ironically, Western Europeans were victims of a similar conquest. Caesar's legions, in a Roman version of Manifest Destiny, came marching through the wilderness we now call France, Belgium, Germany, and England. Local inhabitants relied on their forests in the fight against Roman imperialism. When Roman troops arrived, the Western European tribesmen melted into the forest for protection. Whenever the heavily armed legionnaires broke rank and put their armor and weapons aside to rest or to build stockades, tribal warriors leaped from their sanctuary among the trees and engaged the intruders. A Forest Journey reminds us how these exploitative behaviors have left us all with one giant mess to clean up. The brutal acts of enslavement and genocide still impact millions of people today, and the harmful worldview that the planet's gifts, including human lives, are here for the taking is what continues to drive the climate crisis, as well as our leaders' refusal to do anything about it. Patagonia and I hope this story will encourage listeners to not only reflect on how these wondrous ecosystems support us, but also on how we must work to support them and each other. Much like the trees depend on the clouds, critters, and soil, we depend on one another. For much of human history, the constructors of civilizations forgot this simple truth. As this book chronicles, the civilizations we know today couldn't exist without forests. Likewise, many civilizations have crumbled when the land had reached its limit. We can no longer ignore the warnings from these gentle giants. To save our home and each other, we must actively protect what is left of the Earth's forests. Author's note about John Muir. John Muir was lots of things. He seduced the wife of his host during his first trip to Yosemite. Not nice, but he was young. Instead of falling in love with the lady, he became totally smitten by California's great redwoods, the giant sequoia, and Yosemite. His greatest condemnation was focused on the invasive white people who came to destroy the nature he so dearly loved. When he was accosted by a pitiful remnant of a once great people for tobacco and drink, he did not have nice words for these First Nation people. Blame it on his strict Scottish Presbyterian upbringing. But as he grew older and spent more time with First Nation people far from Yosemite in Alaska, his feelings rang with respect for their way of life. He also earned their love, as the following incident reveals. A nursing First Nation mother died. Her surviving child's life was at stake. Muir ran to his boat and grabbed all the canisters of milk on board. He returned to the crying child and nursed it day and night. The members of the village expressed their appreciation by naming the surviving child John Muir. No doubt John Muir was a cranky fellow. Anyone who threatened his first love, Yosemite, became a target for his ire. That's why he advocated for the removal of all those who wanted to permanently stay in his Yosemite, which included First Nation people, but also the white folk who wished to open up its land to mine or mow down the land cover with their ravenous livestock. He particularly hated sheep. He called them hoofed locusts. He definitely was not a racist in the 19th century sense. Unlike many of America's elite, he never supported slavery, nor adhered to eugenics. True, he made a few offhanded, uncomplimentary comments on the poor blacks when he trekked through the South in the 1860s. But in California, where Muir lived, the real issue of race focused on its burgeoning Asian population. Muir bravely defended the threatened Asians against the prevailing prejudice of the white majority, stating, "Some of the best people in the world are Chinese, and we must not hate them." He then elaborated, "Hatred of any race is both violent and wicked." Online resources. Though printed in the original book, the end notes are shared on our website to save paper and reduce our environmental impact. There you will also find several interactive maps that show how deforestation has affected forests throughout world history. We've provided a teacher's guide for academic use of the book and a reader's guide to deepen your experience of the journey chronicled in the book. Finally, if you choose, we've created a summary document to highlight the most important points of each section of the journey. Enter patagonia.com/A Forest Journey on your preferred server and go to the Notes section. Introduction. Since A Forest Journey was first published in 1989, I have continued discovering new material that would add breadth and relevance to the book, believing that one day a new edition would appear. The new edition not only emphasizes the importance of forests for the wood they have supplied for the development of societies from ancient Mesopotamia to 19th century America, but also shows the role forests have played in making large-scale terrestrial life, including us, on planet Earth, possible. With the specter of global warming confronting us, trees have taken on a significant role for the survival of our species. From a climate perspective, a group of leading scientists writes in the prestigious journal Nature Climate Change, focus on forests is vitally important. Global CO2 emissions from land use change, primarily deforestation, represented around 12% of global emissions for 2007 to 2016, while the terrestrial carbon sink stored around 26% of emissions over the same time period. They therefore conclude, because of this powerful role as both a source and a sink of CO2, forests have long played a key role in international climate change policy and are increasingly in the limelight. Scientists consider the integrity of the Amazon of such importance to the world's climate that they rate its destruction as catastrophic as would be the disintegration of the West Antarctic or the Greenland ice sheet.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?